Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, it's Jan here. Doctor Strange introduces the multiverse and a mystical world we've not yet encountered in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as some mind-tripping special effects. So I wanted to take a look at 10 fascinating facts you need to know about the Sorcerer Supreme and his incarnation on the big screen. To prove just how much he wanted to direct Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson dropped a shed load of his own cash to create a 90-minute visual presentation with all the bells and whistles. Not only did he write and fully illustrate a whole scene of over 10 pages, but he also created concept art and paid professional storyboard artists to make storyboards. And Derrickson's gamble certainly paid off, as Marvel hired him for the job and bought all the work the director had created for the presentation, much of which found its way into the final movie. An original item that was actually created for the movie is the Sling Ring, a device that allows sorcerers to teleport through time and space. In coming up with the idea, Scott Derrickson has said that he took inspiration from the popularity of the Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings movies, in which audiences enjoyed learning about new magical objects and the rules governing their use. Even though Benedict Cumberbatch was director Scott Derrickson's first choice for the role of Doctor Strange, he almost lost out on the part when his other commitments meant he couldn't fit in with the movie's original schedule for a summer 2016 release date. Cumberbatch was already booked to play Hamlet on stage in the latter half of 2015, so Derrickson considered a number of other actors for the part, including Joaquin Phoenix and Jared Leto. In the end though, Derrickson convinced Marvel to move the date of release to late 2016, and Cumberbatch happily accepted the part. Cumberbatch wasn't a huge comics fan as a child and only read Asterix and Tintin. However, he does have a personal attachment to the Tibetan side of Doctor Strange's comic book origins, as he spent a year teaching English to Tibetan monks in India and learning about Tibetan Buddhism as well as meditation, which he still practices to this day. Of course, Cumberbatch did seriously brush up on his Marvel comic book knowledge when he was cast, and director Scott Derrickson has applauded the actor's commitment to the role, including the way he suffered through pain performing many of his own stunts. Costume designer Alexandra Byrne found it especially challenging creating Doctor Strange's iconic cloak of levitation for the movie. Although she was obviously inspired by the comic books, she also made a number of adjustments to the look. For example, she reduced the size of the cloak's collar to prevent it obscuring Cumberbatch's face, and she dropped the gold colours, keeping it just red, but adding in extra details which are visible when the camera focuses in. 20 people worked on crafting the cloak and 18 copies were made to accommodate the various demands of the filming schedule. By the way, although Cumberbatch has nothing but praise for his costumes designer, he's jokingly referred to the cloak of levitation as the cloak of limitations, because not only did he sometimes trip up on it, but it also felt more and more heavy the longer he wore it on set. When it was announced that Tilda Swinton would be playing the Ancient One, the decision to cast a white actor was criticised, as in the comics the Ancient One was a Tibetan sorcerer who mentored Doctor Strange. Marvel's Kevin Feige justified the casting, saying that the Ancient One in the MCU is more a mantle than a specific person, which is why their version is female and of Celtic descent. However, screenwriter Robert Cargill has described the character of the Ancient One as a cultural landmine, and added that locating the movie in Tibet and featuring a Tibetan character could have alienated a potentially very large audience for the film in China. Meanwhile, director Scott Derrickson has said that casting Tilda Swinton was a way of adding diversity in terms of bringing a middle-aged woman who's not 28 years old in leather pants into the Marvel Universe in a major role. The Hong Kong street set was based on reference images that the movie's art department collected in Hong Kong, but was actually built at Long Cross Studios in the UK. 35 shops were assembled, including a butcher's, a dry cleaner's, restaurants and food stalls, a car mechanic, a herbalist, a jeweller's, a paper store and a number of general stores. The Hong Kong action scene was a particularly challenging sequence, as the set had to be modelled in various phases of destruction. Everything on the set, from the vehicles to the store signs, had to be aged just the right amount for each stage of destruction that occurs in the scene, and over 350 tons of rubble were used. In terms of other sets, there were 21 sets built in total, with the largest being the courtyard and street at Kamar Taj. The art department employed nearly 50 people, who, as well as sculpting, model making and printing set pieces with 3D printers, also developed over 3,000 concept drawings and 40 set models. Director Scott Derrickson is a fan of martial arts movies and says that the supernatural elements to his Doctor Strange film mean it's well suited to martial arts style action scenes. And in terms of the way that magical action is portrayed in the movie, he wanted to take away the focus from the sort of lightning bolt action that's been popular in movies, especially since the Emperor used force lightning in the Star Wars films. Although there are light blasts in the movie, Derrickson wanted to develop a different and more original type of magical action style. In fact, the 4 main action scenes in the movie were developed to showcase showcase powers from different dimensions and also to subvert standard movie tropes such as on-foot chase scenes and ticking clock scenarios. Steve Ditko's psychedelic artwork from the comics was a major influence on the visual depiction of alternate dimensions in the Doctor Strange movie, and using 3D as an additional tool to enhance the trippy visuals was particularly important for the filmmakers. But during the visual effects reviews of the footage, Marvel found that the 2D version of some of those sequences weren't working quite as well, so they had to go back and make adjustments to make sure they worked as well in 2D as they did in 3D. By the way, director Scott Derrickson has also confirmed that over 1 hour of the final film has been specially formatted for IMAX. So guys, what do you think about the introduction of magic in the multiverse in Doctor Strange, and which has been your favourite Marvel movie so far? If you liked this video, I really appreciate you commenting and sharing, and do subscribe as I've got a Doctor Strange movie review on the way, as well as Easter egg videos for the movie coming very shortly. You can click here to check those out. Thanks for watching and see you next time, yippee-ki-yay movie lovers!